Hey guys, it's your host Davian. Welcome to another episode of Consciouztv. We are in for quite a commentary and a show tonight, so I hope that you guys have your popcorn out because I'm going to be giving a bit of a story time in this segment. But before we do that, make sure that you guys comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell, hit all when you do, so that you can keep up with all of my latest uploads. And you can also donate to the show at my Cash App, which is $Consciouztv, and you can PayPal me at paypal.me/Consciouztv, and you can also email me at consciouztv@gmail.com. Let's get into it. Now you guys know when I have my notes, it's going to be a long haul, okay? And I also put on my Jesus Christ garbs because I want to keep the cussing pastor in me down. So I feel like, if I wore something that reminded me of the messianic holiness of Christ, that it would keep me in the spirit of virtue and righteousness, even though I'm pretty sure I'm going to cuss a few bitches out in this commentary along the way, but nonetheless. Now, before I dig off deep into the asshole of this story, I want you guys to know that I have a Patreon set up. I had to get one because this story involves our good blog friend, LarryReid Live, who is caught up in a lot of legality right now due to a story he's been covering, helping a young woman get child support, get the involvement of her baby father into the son they had together out of wedlock, because this is a married pastor, coupled with another more insidious story that came out of this pastor's church involving a alleged rape victim. Now Larry is being summoned to court where he may have to do some jail time as well as pay some fines, which would be not only extremely unfortunate, but it would be very unjust in this case. And I'm going to tell you at the end of this commentary why it's very important for all of the bloggers to pick the story up and to carry it on to yonder. And we've got to do this. So stick around to hear this commentary. My end conclusion is going to be one that we need to hear as a black community. And there's a reason why I feel led and feel inspired to do this video. We're going to get into all of that, but definitely go over to my Patreon. I had to snatch up the receipts from out of LarryReid's Patreon because they're shutting him down every which way right now. So sign up for my Patreon, which is $5 a month. You can hear the full-blown interview between Larry and this victim, this alleged rape victim, on my Patreon, as well as the text messages that are going to refute some of the things that the Christian Post made a error in their dissertation regarding this entire matter between LarryReid, the rape victim, the House of Hope, and Dewey Smith. You don't want to miss those receipts. I don't know how long I'm going to have them, so definitely go ahead over there, check those out, and there will be tea and receipts in my Patreon every month. I'm going to be dropping shit in there that I cannot drop anywhere else but in my Patreon, so you definitely want to subscribe and stay tuned for my Patreon. Now, let's talk about how LarryReid got here. For those of you who have been following LarryReid Live, you guys know that he's been covering a story regarding a particular pastor out of Atlanta who runs a mega church, and his name is Dewey Smith. Now, Dewey Smith is currently married, and he initially showed up on LarryReid's radar because Larry covered a story that he stumbled upon through no other than the Sir William McCrae himself. Oh God. For those of you who are familiar with William McCrae owns a website called Consciouztv. He is one of the pioneers as it relates to this church sector, church news, church controversy, church everything. And he is a sanctified, Holy Ghost, Kojic, hell-raising, lace-back, 300 pounds less, 7 girdle wearing, Church in Christ, hope to God this confused nigga don't lay his hands on me for prayer. Oh God. Now I have some tea to drop about Sir William later on in this commentary as well, so just keep following me here. So LarryReid initially saw this post that Sir William McCrae had dropped on his Facebook regarding some controversy around a Atlanta mega church pastor and a bastard child. Make a long story short, the baby mother of that pastor came forward, and here we had this baby mama being interviewed by Larry Reid, who started covering the story. For those of you who've been following Larry, you guys know that Larry has a soft spot for abandoned children, for fatherless sons. This is a part of his ministry. So this is a part of what he does, which is aiding single women, women who have got caught up in affairs unbeknownst to them, intentionally whatsoever, where a child has came out of the exchange who is not being supported financially and or emotionally. Now in E. Dewey Smith's case, he allegedly is only participating in terms of paying child support. The courts petitioned E. Dewey Smith to take a paternity test where he came back 99.9% indefinite, the father, to this particular child. And from there, he has been paying child support, but he has had no parental involvement with this child, which is what prompts the mother to seek to social media, eventually get connected to the LarryReid Live platform, where she and them both could apply some social pressure to E. Dewey Smith to get involved with his child. Now through Larry carrying the story, applying some social pressure to E. Dewey, this Atlanta megachurch pastor, had his legal consultant Quentin Washington, who is in charge of the legal representation on behalf of the House of Hope, which is the name of the megachurch, aka the House of Horrors, and E. Dewey Smith himself. Now allegedly, Quentin Washington, the lawyer of House of Hope, and E. Dewey Smith began harassing Larry Reid through a series of emails and various forms of communication in order to prompt Larry to shut the hell up and stop covering the story, because obviously it was bringing negative publicity to the man of God. And because this was the lawyer of House of Hope and E. Dewey Smith, Larry promptly sought out his lawyer, no other than celebrity attorney Phaedra fucking Parks. Now pause. I have no idea why the fuck Phaedra Parks would be Larry Reid's lawyer. We know that Phaedra Parks couldn't win a case if her peach depended on it. Now this is the same chick who couldn't even properly subpoena Sheree Wicksfield's ex-husband Bob for child support. Remember that episode? And this is also the same chick who didn't even know what fucking trimester she was in. Do you remember that season? But yet, not the best wall of protection. Not to mention that Bobby Brown completely threw Phaedra Parks' ass under the bus for being an incompetent defense attorney. Nonetheless, Phaedra and Quentin got together and came up with what they believe could be a middle ground, which was to then bring Larry Reid on as a media consultant on behalf of E. Dewey Smith. Now what this meant on the surface, just in title alone, for those of you who don't know what a media consultant would be, is Larry would essentially be signed on to be in charge of facilitating all of E. Dewey Smith's public appearances on television, on radio, as well as facilitate all interviews, and to make sure that E. Dewey's reputation looks great, that his public image looks fine, etc. Now when Larry Reid, Phaedra Parks, Quentin, and E. Dewey Smith sat down to get the paperwork done, E. Dewey allegedly gave Larry his word that he was at this point working on being involved with the child, that he was working on reconciling things with the baby mother and taking on the other half of his parental responsibility to the child. And this really soothed Larry. And you know, Larry is sometimes optimistic to a fucking fault, because he's a very hopeful person and really believes in the humanity of people. So Larry felt good about this. Larry, in his own mind, thought, well, you know what? I'll help this man transition from being a illegitimate ass pastor who got this fuck shit going on, and to help his narrative transition from uninvolved father to responsible active father to his son. That was a good compromise. Everybody could get what they need. The child, the baby mama, Dewey could take responsibility. Boom. Seemed like a good thing, right? Well, it was right until some very weird things started happening, because along the way, Dewey started making public appearances, aka he appeared on Sister Circle, and this prompted Larry initially, according to sources, to fall back and be like, what is going on here? Because I am supposed to be in charge of all of his appearances, and Dewey hasn't even come through me to get on the sister circle. So he reached out to Phaedra Parks to see what the tea was. Phaedra, being the black-haired blonde that she is, was too busy running behind White Chocolate and did not have a lick of a clue as to why Larry had not been consulted, but Larry just kind of charged it to the game and kept it moving. Now, shortly after Dewey's appearance on Sister Circle, things began to take an even more interesting turn for the worse when one of LarryReid's faithful subscribers contacted Larry personally and said, look, there was a pastoral meeting at the House of Hope where John Gray and E. Dewey Smith was in attendance, where E. Dewey was having a conversation within this meeting to John Gray and said he found a way to silence Larry Reid. Now, you guys know John Gray, aka Baby Jakes, as Larry would like to call him, also has had this feud because Larry Reid pressed the gas on John Gray before due to his own extramarital affairs, where John Gray seemingly was not as innocent as him and his wife was portraying him to be in the matters that came forward about John Gray's infidelity within his marriage. Now, this has been a bitter tension between John Gray and Larry Reid ever since, and with John Gray being in proximity to E. Dewey Smith, this led E. Dewey Smith to comforting John Gray, who apparently he was having his back and letting him know, look, I've silenced the big bad media monster. Now, translation, what does this mean? E. Dewey Smith tells John Gray, I found a way to shut him up. What it essentially means and suggests is that E. Dewey Smith used the contract, the consultant contract he had Larry Reid sign, which was a $10,000 contract for Larry's services, allegedly. And out of this $10,000, of course, Larry had to pay fake, phony, fraudulent, incompetent Phaedra her lawyer's fee as well, and was using this contract to domesticate Larry and to have some control over Larry as it relates to any of his opinions and thoughts and use of his platform regarding E. Dewey Smith. Now, according to my sources, when Larry got whiff that this meeting happened and that E. Dewey Smith had said this to John Gray in a private meeting amongst pastors at the House of Hope, this once again piqued Larry's attention at this point, because now E. Dewey has been making appearances and not consulting Larry like he was contracted to do, coupled with the fact that there is a loyal subscriber of his who also happens to be a Baptist pastor telling him that he overheard this exchange between John Gray and E. Dewey Smith about Larry. Larry then consulted his attorney, Phaedra, once again and said, look, I need to see my contract and see what's in my contract. And of course, Faye didn't know what the hell going on because she was too busy teabagging Andy Cohen for her peach again on Atlanta Housewives. So LarryReid went and dug up his own contract according to sources, and that's when he saw something very, very, very interesting in that media consultant contract. That in clause 14 and clause 6, that there were a list of names that Larry absolutely could not ever speak negatively about as long as the contract was active, and that clause 14 stated allegedly that Larry could not speak negatively regarding E. Dewey Smith nor the House of Hope. Now, Larry then arranged a meeting with Phaedra and House of Hope's lawyer Quentin Washington along with E. Dewey to discuss this contract, because at this point Larry had no interest in being a biased media consultant for E. Dewey Smith. He had no idea that these clauses were in his contract because he had trusted incompetent attorney Phaedra Parks to have gone over the contract, understood the contract, and have explained the contract properly to him. And because of his naivety and trust in his attorney, he ended up bamboozled and hoodwinked. Now, in this meeting, Larry then was interested in returning the $10,000. He wanted to return the money. He wanted out of the contract. He wanted to be able to go back to his regular commentary and to be able to support E. Dewey with a sense of integrity versus being controlled and being forced to make Dewey look a certain kind of way, because now with all of the events between what the subscriber is dropped on Larry, coupled with the fact that Dewey is making business moves and not consulting Larry is now understanding something is fishy in the water, coupled with the fact that Phaedra did not want Larry out of the contract, because obviously this bitch can't afford to be missing no goddamn checks. So she is not interested at all at having Larry get out of this goddamn contract. So in this meeting, the second meeting between them, Dewey completely speaks to Larry's concerns, tells him that that is a completely fabricated lie. No such conversation ever happened allegedly between him and John Gray, and that his plans were to in fact have Larry do what he contracted Larry to do, and that everything was going to be just fine. Now, I told you guys Larry is a little bit, you know, his optimism makes him a little mentally impaired. The nigga is just a little bit too much of a believer in a Mr. Rogers as it relates to the humanity of humans. So LarryReid extended a mercy card to Dewey and said, okay nigga, you trying it and shit looking fucked up, but I'm really trying to work with you in this situation, because I want things to be well for all parties, and if this cannot look like a mess, you know, I want to be a part of that. But my incentive here is to have you connect to that child that was promised. So things went back to normal. According to sources, the same subscriber that initially reached out to Larry about this breach of contract and this conversation between Dewey Smith and John Gray returned back to Larry and let him know that there was another pastoral meeting held at the House of Hope, and that Dewey Smith came through that church more inflamed than the gingivitis behind Kaya's teeth, and cussed everybody out in the room, threatened that when he finds out who leaked this information, who went back to LarryReid and told him about this conversation, that there will be dire consequences and repercussions. Now at this point, Larry knew the gig was up, according to my sources, and that's when Larry went back to just saying fuck it. He threw out the contract. He was no longer in allegiance to it, even though technically, legally, he was, but he made an executive choice to just proceed with his commentary and to help this baby mama apply motherfucking pressure to Dewey Smith, because it was now clear to Larry that that was something that was never going to happen, because even he was being manipulated and coerced into silence under the guise that he would help provide positive publicity to Dewey Smith going public about this child and taking an active role in this child's life. The plot thickens for the House of Hope, aka the House of Horrors. Things just synchronistically kept getting worse, because an alleged rape victim came forward and claimed that she had been raped and drugged by one of the associates at the House of Hope. This story was initially also broke by William McCray III. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that William McCray initially broke the story, but went completely silent after this alleged victim came forward in breaking the story. Now, according to my sources, allegedly William McCray was also signed into an image consultant agreement. There was also a monetary fee that was exchanged for William McCray not perpetuating the story negatively, and for helping to distract the public from the negative publicity that might potentially come out of this ordeal leaking. Now, William McCray, around this time that he went completely silent, ironically ended up getting a new car. Now, you guys know that William McCray can't even afford lace glue for his edges, so there's no way in hell he alone was in a position to get a brand new car. But ironically, William McCray was sporting a brand new horse and carriage. So to me, this is all too close to coincidence. Now, while I'm on Sir William McCray, let me just say this. So William McCray, you are a fucking joke. What's interesting about people like me is that I have always been blessed and had a favor over my life where God has allowed me into spaces, into circles, into dimensions and realms amongst people where I am able to have access to various truths and information. What you don't know, Sir William McCrae, is that there are people who you tell all your tea to who are very connected to me. There are multiple people, actually. And what the people don't know that they're going to know now is that allegedly, and I have heard the recordings, I have heard the verified proof of you literally extorting well-known pastors and pastorettes in the church sector, in the church realm, for money. What that means is that Sir William McCrae III, he allegedly, and I've heard this with my own ears, so for me it's not allegedly, but for y'all it's allegedly. He creates false evidence to incriminate people about, then contacts whoever this well-known person is of his choice and tells them that he has this information. He has these doctored photos. He has these doctored text messages. He has these doctored screenshots and emails. And that he's going to put this information out if these people don't do X, Y, and Z. Now, half the time, Sir William McCrae would have these people pay him cash. This is how he's been able to sustain his livelihood, because you know that Sir William McCrae does not work for a living, and he's always pulling up to a Taco Bell or a Bojangles for a $5 fucking box. Now, Sir William McCrae is on payroll, and he's on payroll by people who don't even have a controversy. There's no real external threat. But Sir William McCrae has created false evidence to blackmail people with, leaving them to believe that there are people who have images of them, that there are people who have recordings of them, and even some of these people who know that the information is false don't even want William McCrae leaking false information, because that brings negative publicity as well. So they end up paying William McCrae to shut the fuck up. This is how Sir William makes his motherfucking dollar. He is a bottom feeder. He is a catfish. The bitch is a desert roach. Coupled with the fact that you got the mitigated gall to come out of your mouth and speak down to the LGBT community with all that little fake ass scriptural, pastoral, I am a holy, sanctified human being bullshit that you spew out of your dick sucker, when everyone in Atlanta and everyone in our circle knows that you get fucked more times a day than an abandoned dog. Bitch, make it make sense. Stand up, live in your gay ass truth, which is plastered all over your aesthetic. I can't even understand where you can begin to believe that you are able to convince anybody with the lick of fucking sense that you are indeed straight. I mean, your lies are so blatant and bold and audacious that they're almost offensive, bitch. You ever had a bitch lie so fucking boldly that the shit is almost offensive, bitch? You feel the God in you offended by the mitigated gall of a pathological, confident, bold-faced ass motherfucking scandalous, habitual ass liar. Jesus, keep me near the cross. Now, before we get back to Larry, let me tell you guys about the backstory to this alleged rape victim that came out of the House of Hope. This woman and her daughter were initially members at the House of Hope. This woman fell on hard times and she ended up being homeless. This then led the woman to being able to enroll in a housing program that the House of Hope had in place to help provide for struggling parents, single mothers. Now, when someone gets in this program, they're given a guardian. This particular person who was overseeing this woman and her child happened to be allegedly one of E. Dewey Smith's right-hand man. Now, the full-blown interview and the full-blown account of what happened at the House of Hope with this alleged victim is all in my Patreon. Once again, you guys go and sign up. It's only $5 a month. There's going to be hot tea dropped in that motherfucker every month. It's going to be well worth your subscription. But the entire conversation between Larry Reid and this alleged rape victim is in that Patreon, along with text messages between the rape victim and Larry Reid as well. Now, this alleged victim claimed that one night this church associate who was over her drugged her and raped her, and she then went to church authorities first. Oftentimes rape victims don't even come forward about the abuse, and when they do, they usually do it to the system or the people or the persons who they trust the most. In this case, for this woman, it would be the church itself who she went to for solace. But what ended up actually happening is that she consulted the House of Hope, who then arranged a meeting between her and Dewey, which, according to the alleged victim, initially was only supposed to be a private meeting between her and Dewey Smith. But that, according to the rape victim, was actually not the case. She eventually ended up in a meeting in a room where Dewey Smith allegedly walked in with 9 other church associates and a book of papers, had her sign what eventually became non-disclosures. Now, after this woman had signed these papers out of fear, out of being pressured, she was also promised it would also fire this individual. Let's just stop right there. Now, the church has a lot of motherfucking things wrong with it. Both the black church and the white church. The whole goddamn system at this point is overran by Lucifer, by the consciousness of the fallen one itself. A wickedness resides in every high place in our world, from government to religions. Wickedness, you can bet, is occupying most of the seats at the table. The righteous, the salt, the meek of the earth are the minority of people who are interacting with the ebb and flow of the world. The fact that the church had no problem allowing this man to walk back into his own community, amongst children, amongst other women, and had no care and concern for putting a rapist back out into the world without no accountability, and the best you could do as a punishment, as a consequence, was to fire him. Fire him. If that's not fucked up, heartbreaking, and one of the most insulting things I've ever heard in my fucking life, considering that the church, considering what the church is supposed to be, and the type of people who are supposed to be in leadership in the church, that this would be the mindset. Bitch, you have earned the name House of Fucking Horrors. Not only is allegedly the pastor himself fucking outside of his marriage, not taking accountability for lives he's creating in other women's vaginas, but he's also okay with allowing rapists to get away with rape, all out of pseudo support of the vanity of the church. All out of support of keeping the reputation of the church, keeping the reputation of the man of God intact. The church thought this way. Not that there was a system above the church pressuring the church to cover it up. The church having the power, the bandwidth, and the wherewithal to walk better, to do better, that decided all by itself to be fraudulent and negligent. My God, my. After this woman fled this meeting, realized she was very uncomfortable with the state of this affair between her and the House of Hope, she then sought out Larry Reid for advice. This is where the conversation that's on my Patreon comes into play at, that will allow you to hear his and her exchange. At this point, Larry was still technically legally restrained from talking negatively about anything regarding Dewey Smith and the House of Hope, and he distanced himself personally from the House of Hope and his obligation to this contract. But this is how the shit came back to bite Larry in the ass, because now this victim is telling Larry and feeding Larry the situation between her and the House of Hope. Larry is using his platform to expose the church, to expose E. Dewey. And in the midst of all of this publicity, this alleged victim is being threatened at an alarming rate. She's receiving death threats allegedly in her mailbox. And there came a point in time where even she was ran off of the road in order to silence her. At this point, Larry allegedly, according to my sources, encouraged the woman to seek legal representation and to go to the law, because even if she didn't want to press the gas fully using the law, it needed to be on record what was going on with her. In case something happened to her, there would be a paper trail that could lead to holding the House of Horrors, aka the House of Hope, accountable, because now there were death threats that were being implemented on this woman's life. And allegedly, Quentin Washington was able to get a lawsuit put out against Larry. Now, the interesting thing about this is that allegedly Quentin Washington and the judge who granted this lawsuit and subpoenaed Larry is also good friends with Quentin Washington. What it appears to be is that this church is not only a powerful system in and of itself, but that all of the legal authority that is implemented to protect the church is also corrupted and also has a bias. Now, Larry was emailed the lawsuit, and in the lawsuit, according to my sources, it stated that Larry had to shut the hell up and he had to remove all of his previous commentary, videos, and content regarding the coverage of E. Dewey and the House of Hope. Now, before Larry could even do that, Larry's channel, both on Facebook and on YouTube, has started being flagged, which then froze Larry's Facebook. So he only has partial functionality and control over his Facebook as well as on YouTube. And because y'all know Larry is a goddamn fool and crazy, he also breached the lawsuit by then going live and telling all of his subscribers that he just got subpoenaed and that he was being sued by the House of Hope. Now, because of this, the lawyer of the House of Hope was able to press the gas. He's also now entering into court already in contempt of court. Technically, according to the lawsuit, Larry is supposed to remove this content, but because they started flagging his channel, he wasn't able to actually go in and delete the content. So that means that any and everybody watching this can go and download that content. It is still up. You can upload it to Facebook, upload it to Patreon, upload it everywhere you want to before Larry has to actually take it down. And it is coming down as soon as his bans and suspensions are lifted off of YouTube and Facebook. But this story needs to be told because there is a woman who is without justice. There is an innocent man, Larry, who's being manipulated and silenced and might possibly have to experience jail time, all because he's helping a innocent person, and this church is getting away with absolute fucking murder. Now, in the midst of the lawsuit, in the midst of Larry's channels being flagged, in the midst of this woman being ran off the road, the Christian Post wrote about the story, and the Christian Post extrapolated a police report that was initially filed by the woman that Larry encouraged the woman to go and file against the House of Hope. And this is how the Christian Post got its narrative. Now, the post was intact except for a minor detail. The Christian Post stated that Larry did not have permission to release the audio, which is not true. Which is why you guys need to go over to my Patreon, because the proof is in the text messages that were between the rape victim and LarryReid, where it's clear as day that there was a clause for Larry to be able to upload the interview under what terms and conditions. So the Christian Post is incorrect that Larry did not have permission. He in fact did, and those receipts are on my Patreon. By the time this video is released, Larry probably already has appeared in court. Now, Larry has a fighting chance of some equilibrium and solidarity here. It really appears that E. Dewey Smith actually breached his contract first, because they both, Larry and E. Dewey Smith, signed this confidentiality consultant agreement. So that means that Larry was not supposed to make mention of this consultant agreement, and neither was E. Dewey Smith. Christian Washington, the lawyer of the House of Hope, is in cahoots and close friends with the judge residing over the goddamn lawsuit, which means that this is a conflict of interest. Because imagine if your friend was the judge, how much favor and an upper hand would you have, even if you're wrong in the matter, because of the biasness of your friend? Well, that's the issue and obstacle Larry ass is going up against. And a shout out to Tasha K, because Tasha K extended all of her legal team to Larry, and Larry got some really high quality, high end lawyers on his end to help him go into battle with. There's 3 innocent people in this matter. This child who has nothing to do with his dad being a ratchet, incompetent, sorry, pathetic ass man of God and not adhering to the virtues that he so enforces the rest of his congregation to uphold to. But there's also a woman who was raped and abused and taken advantage of and coerced into silence by this fucking church. There's been no accountability on behalf of the church, and there's been no consequence that has come unto her alleged rapist. Then we have Larry, who is simply trying to help, and this is a travesty. What I need us all to understand is, for one, we've got to have Larry's back, and not just Larry. This is a blogger's issue, because we have a responsibility to yield our platforms and to yield our powers for the great of good. We are the new press. We are the new media. Nobody watches TV anymore. Nobody cares hardly about TMZ anymore. Everybody runs to the social media bloggers and commentators for the real, whole, nuanced tea. So we are now the new media. We're the new press. Our platforms have brought people to their knees. And why I believe it's necessary to protect Larry Reid is because not only am I an admirer of his work, when it comes to real spiritual people who are out here doing the grassroots manual work in this world, really trying to help people and better society, I believe these people need protection. The scriptures say that the field is plentiful, but the laborers are few. There's a lot of people who talk a good game, but the people who actually are putting their shit on the line, Larry has something to lose, and he's risking losing that on behalf of standing up for what's fucking right. He's essentially a vigilante, and all of these social media commentators addressing the woes and the ills and the corruption and the bullshit that happens in Hollywood, that happens in the political world. You are doing a great service to your community and to society, and these people need our help and our protection as a audience. We are the wall. We are the ones who enforce accountability when things happen to the people who are out here making a fucking difference in our world. Larry has children that he has to walk away from. Larry has opportunities happening in his life that would be hindered by him having to sit in jail for 20 and 30 days. What you can do right now to help this man is extend your financial aid to him. You can Cash App Larry, you can PayPal Larry. I will put his information in the description box below. This money can go toward proper and long-winded legal representation. Secondly, you guys who have platforms, run the story. Keep your fucking foot on the neck of the house of horror. I am giving this rape victim the total benefit of a doubt, coupled with the fact that the man over this mega church also was comfortable not being in the life and taking no moral, emotional, and mental responsibility for a seed that he participated in creating, and had no conviction about moving forward in his life with his wealth, with his wife, with his kids, without including love and solidarity for this other child. Now, when you begin to be fucked up on this kind of level, I can believe that you are fucked up on multiple type of fucking levels. And we're living in an age where we are struggling to hold our governments accountable. We are struggling to hold our police force accountable. We are struggling to hold our judicial system accountable. But as we figure out how to apply pressure and how to do that, we can at least do what we can do to protect our own. who are out here putting in the work to make our lives, our communities, our babies, our families, and our institutions well. We can do that. So I want all of you guys to go over there, snatch them videos down off of Larry Reid Live's page before he has to do it. Upload that shit everywhere and continue to get the story out. We've got to show the powers that be that our leaders don't stand alone, that our community don't stand alone, and that when one unjust thing happens to one of us, motherfucker, it happens to all of us. And if there's any group of people who needs to master that shit, it is the black community. If you support the work that these people are out here doing, this is how you can do it. Have their fucking back. Carry the torch. Speak about the injustices. Speak to the injustices. Hashtag these motherfuckers. Let them know that these people aren't going down alone and that there is a village behind them, and we are the motherfucking village. Once again, all of the receipts are in my Patreon. The link to that shit will be below. You guys let me know what you think about the story and this matter involving Larry Reid. So definitely go and indulge in that interview. Go and check it out. Once again, my Patreon is $5 a month. You guys can see the text messages between Larry Reid as well as hear the entire interview. See for yourself. Make your own judgment call. And for all of you who love Larry and are subscribed to Larry, pick this story up. Talk about it on your Facebook, talk about it on your YouTube, upload his last 3 videos on this whole subject to your platforms, and just allow the receipts to be still standing even if Larry goes into court and isn't successful at coming out. Check the House of motherfucking Hope. Check their ass, get into their ass, apply pressure to their ass, call the House of Hope, email Dewey fucking Smith. Let him know that he has to speak to these situations. He has to speak to these fucking matters. Ask him to speak to the way that Larry Reid Live is being handled right now as a result of him trying to help his child and trying to help a woman who is claiming she was sexually assaulted at his fucking church. Make him answer to these things, okay? So I want you guys to comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Share this video out. I told you guys that this would be a lengthy matter. Phaedra, fuck you. House of Horror, fuck you. You petty ass, hating ass bitches, fuck you too. Okay? You also comment, rate, and fucking subscribe. You guys also know that you can donate to the show at my Cash App, which is $Consciouztv, or my PayPal at paypal.me/Consciouztv. And you can email me any information, any questions you have, any leads you have on the story, any information you have on the story. Definitely send to my emails, you guys. Definitely leave all your feedback below, and I will check you guys later.